Hi, I'm Khushi and this is Flipping Founders. Today, I have with me someone who's an advocate of what he calls the generation of change. His mission is to have an impact on 1 billion lives around the world. He's the founder and CEO of For the Menstruator, which he started when he was just 15 years old in Kenya. His work has been featured in major publications like BBC and Daily Nation and has received big awards, including Princess Diana Award. Ziyaan, welcome to Flipping Founders.
Thank you so much. That's a really nice introduction.
Yeah, do you want to tell us what is your nonprofit about?
For sure. So, when I was 15, I had the opportunity to start For the Menstruator. We're a global youth-led nonprofit that aims to create a world of menstrual equity, and we do this by mostly, providing menstruators access to menstrual products, advocating for, breaking the stigma around this topic, and so much more. So, yeah, to date, we've been able to support over 17,000 menstruators. We've worked in 10 countries around the world. And over the years, we've had an amazing team of over 160 young people in all these different places doing all this amazing work. But yeah, that's a little bit about us.
Yeah, no, that's really impressive. And so, also sort of acknowledging the stigma that exists in conservative cultures in Asia and Africa. What sort of inspired you to start this?
For sure. So maybe we'll go a little bit back and just from the founding story. So you probably won't see this like in most of like the media stuff that I've done, but way before I started this organization, I actually grew up in a family of like very strong and in a community of strong values of service, giving back. So from a very early age, my parents put me in like every volunteering opportunity that there was. So from then, I actually went through a life changing experience when I was 15. So as you mentioned, I was born and raised in Tanzania, but I moved to Kenya when I was in grade 9. And after my first year of school there, um, I went through this experience. So there was a dengue fever outbreak towards the last week of school, and it was a boarding school. But unfortunately, since I got it on the last day of school, I had to travel back with it to Tanzania, and because our healthcare system is pretty bad, I'd say, or isn't the best. It took doctors 1 week to figure out that I had dengue fever. And by the time that they found out, that I had dengue fever, like they obviously admitted me to the hospital. But the doctors were like, if we waited any longer, your organs would start bleeding. Because basically dengue fever kills your platelets, and your platelets reproduce your white blood cells. So they were like, yeah, like we're so glad we caught it just right in time. And then I was in the hospital for 1 week. Eventually recovered. I had to eat like banana leaves or like some weird stuff, like some weird herbal medicine, because at that time there was no like treatment for dengue fever. Anyways, I get discharged from the hospital, and then from that point up to the next 3 weeks, I went through a phase in which I don't really remember, but from what people said, I was acting hypersexual and hyperactive, and I had no recollection of it. So I did some really crazy things, and people would describe me as someone that was like crazy, high, and drunk at the same time. It took me around 2 or so weeks to fully understand what was happening and process everything, and I was in a lot of shock. And everyone had a different theory, so I didn't know what to believe. So doctors that treated me for dengue fever say that affected my brain functionality. A psychologist like diagnosed me with bipolar disorder, and said I had a manic episode. We went to my family's pretty religious, so we went to a lot of priests, and they said I was possessed. We went to like a Reiki master, and she was like a negative entity passed through me. So everyone had a different theory on what really happened. And I didn't know what to believe, but what I did understand, or at least what I felt inside, was that I lost 3 weeks of my life, and this is a wake up call, and you never know what could have happened then. So that's when I was like, I wanna really take this as an opportunity to turn my life around and be more intentional about how I want to live moving forward, and think about what is my purpose, why was I put into this world. And I started asking myself all these questions, like why is it that I had to go through this experience, you know what I mean? And coincidentally, I go back to school, right? And As soon as I get into like grade 10, I'm required to start up this personal project, and I could do anything of my choice. And I watched this documentary on Al Jazeera named India's Menstruation Man, and that was the first time I learned about periods and menstruation. Obviously, given I grew up in a very conservative community, whereas people don't talk about this, especially as someone that doesn't menstruate. So I watched this documentary. I'm like, wow, like why is no one talking about this? So I have a conversation with my mom, and she told me that when she grew up in India, there was a point in her life because she grew up in a single parent household, she didn't have access to products, and they couldn't afford it. So she would use old rags and blankets, and cloth, and it was really unhygienic. And she had so many experiences where she would leak like in public and stuff, and it was pretty bad. Um, and I'm like, I just watched this documentary. Yeah, when I had this conversation with my mom, and now like now what, right? So I do my research and I find out over 500 million menstruators don't have access to products. And in Africa at the time, an average of 1 in 10 girls didn't have access. I think in Kenya and Tanzania, 65% of the menstruators didn't have access. And I was like, this is such a big issue and no one's talking about it. No one's, at least I didn't know anyone that's doing anything. Disposable pads, tampons, menstrual cups. I also came across reusables and they look really cool because they were more sustainable. So I look at all the different push stats for reusable products, and I decided to make my own. So I learned how to stitch, and I worked with a local tailor, and I was able to make a product that would last for 6 months. I gave it out to my friends to try it on, give me feedback, and once I had all of that, then I was able to serve a community of around 22 menstruators for my school project.
Wow.
Finished my school project. We ended there. I presented about it, got a good grade, and I could have pretty much stopped at that point, like all my other peers. But since I worked on this for like 1 year, I'm like, you know what? Like I've done all this research, I've had interaction with this community. I know this is such a big issue, and 22 versus 500 million is nothing. I also realized, I was passionate about this, but more importantly, I realized that the 22 people that I helped, in reality, I actually contributed more to the problem than solving it. Now, what does that mean? I realized after the 6 months that my product would last, the people that I supported would go back to the same old methods that they had. And in reality, I would just create a dependency syndrome. So I'm like, okay, now what? Like, I have all these realizations. How do I move forward? So, step one, I go back to school, start up a team. At the time, we were around 7 to 10 people, and we decided to change two main things. So, the first thing we changed was our product. So, what we did was now our products last 3 years. They are 100% biodegradable, extremely cost effective. It costs anywhere between, we have like a $2 package to an $8 package. And it comes with all these different things that I never considered before. So things like pairs of underwear. Some of the menstruators don't even have underwear to wear the products. Things like an waterproof bag, antiseptic soap. The design is also embarrassment free. So all these different considerations we put in place. And then we also change our approach. So now, apart from making these products and just giving them out, what we'll do is we have this sustainable model of approach in which first we'll go into a community, take some time to understand them, build a relationship with them, understand what's the need that they actually have, what's the pain point, right? And then from there, based off of that, we usually have an educational workshop. So we'll teach both menstruators and non-menstruators about reproductive and sexual health. And we use both formal and informal practices of doing that. So you'd see us standing in front of a class giving a lecture, but you'd also see us, sitting in a round circle having all these different conversations of things that aren't taught in class. Yeah, apart from that, after that, we then have we actually give them the products. We teach them how to use it and wash it, but we also teach them how to make their own. So the good thing about it is because we're giving them a skill, it's this whole idea of don't give them fish, but teach them how to fish, right? So after the 3 years that this product lasts, since we use locally available materials, these menstruators can go to their local markets or use some of the existing materials to make their own, and they will never ever need us again, right? So it's a lifelong solution we're providing. And in addition to that, if there's a group of 1,000, what we've seen is there's an exponential effect. So we'll go in there and maybe help like 10 menstruators. Those 10 usually pass on that skill to 10 others, and those 10 pass on to 10 others, and eventually then the whole community has access. So it's really sustainable in that sense. And then so yeah, it's been 5 years now, and we've been able to help over 17,000 menstruators. We've grown into becoming this whole youth-led movement of young people in their own communities carrying out the same approach and fighting for this issue. And we're nowhere close to the 500 million number is still there. And by the end of the day, yeah, like it's all about those individuals, one like those that one person that we can help and change their lives. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's just so brave for you to, like just go out there, like you saw a problem and you're like, wow, this is a big issue.
Yeah.
And I don't know why there's nothing being done about
Yeah.
it because it's also so natural.
Yeah.
It's so natural, and you go out there and you're like, if nobody's doing anything, I can do it. It's
Yeah.
fine if I don't experience it.
Exactly.
That doesn't stop me from
Yeah.
actually, helping people
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
So I think that's really brave of you. And even to like stick with it,
For sure.
because like consistency is hard. And
Yeah.
so I imagine that when you're sort of like when you started, there must be these challenges in
For sure.
like talking to people. And I
Yeah.
think when we're sort of teenagers, there is no like sort of proper conversation, there's no
Yeah.
education about it.
Yeah.
So for you to just go up to like girls and ask them about their experiences,
Yeah.
or tell them like, this is a product I made and
Yeah.
can you please try it,
Yeah.
and sort of getting their
Yeah.
reviews on that.
Yeah.
What was that like? How did you sort of overcome, I wouldn't even say overcome, I think break the taboo in your community?
Yeah. I think there are a lot of challenges in it. Like, so obviously, as you mentioned, the taboo was definitely one of the bigger ones because,
Mhm.
again, no one really has this conversation, especially um, to someone that doesn't menstruate, right? And as a guy, like, so initially, a lot of people had like different reactions, and some people they weren't comfortable talking about it. And there've been so many times where we've gone to, let's say, a certain community, and we're hosting a workshop, and the people that we're working with, they aren't willing to have a conversation with me in the room. So I've had to literally step out of the room and let our team members,
The female team
yeah,
members.
exactly, have
Okay.
these conversations. There've been moments where I've had, let's say, sessions with parents of a certain community, and the non-menstruators in the room have literally stepped out whilst I'm having this conversation because they feel like they're not supposed to be there. And yeah, so it's a lot of challenge. A lot of my guy friends at the time would make a lot of fun of me, and even up to today, like a lot of people make fun of me for doing this kind of work and working in this space. Um, there were a lot of positives as well, though. Like there were a lot of people was supportive, especially my friends who would menstruate. They were like, like I love to try your product. So yeah, and then I think a lot of the other challenges as a young founder is one, especially the legal system back home. Like you have to be 18 to start to register your company or your nonprofit. So for the
Okay.
longest time, like I wouldn't have registration, and that would stop me from getting applying to grants or getting funding,
Hmm.
or people willing to give me money to actually do this. So we would literally sell shawarmas like in our school every Friday during our
Oh.
events, and we would make $1 profit from each shawarma. We would sell like 300 a night, and then use like those $300 to like on a Friday night we do this, and then on a Sunday we would like help out, like and go to a community. So that's how I started off, like because there's so many people that weren't like willing to give me money to do this
Hmm.
project, right? Especially it being a nonprofit, and especially being 15, not even knowing what it's like to get a period. So those were some of the issues I'd say, but yeah, there's definitely a lot, like yeah.
And I think, what did you sort of like learn from those challenges? Because they were pretty big
Yeah,
challenges.
for sure. I think the biggest reflection in the last 5 years is, look, if you wanna be, successful, if you have something you're passionate about and you want to really be successful in it, like you have to take the unconventional path.
Hmm.
You could be a sheep and walk with the rest of the herd, and just follow everyone's lead and do what everyone else is doing. And you're just gonna be one out of like so many other people. But if you want to stand out, if you truly want to make an impact and change the way things are done in society, or change, be revolutionary and start a movement, then
Hmm.
you have to take the unconventional path. And to do that, you have to, be vulnerable. You have to be open. You have to put yourself in outside your comfort zone. And for me, and always be willing to learn and grow. Like I feel like in the last 5 years, I still don't know what it's like to menstruate, and I'm still learning
Hmm.
something every single day, right? But it is out of my comfort zone, and I'm learning, and I think that's what excites me because that's where growth takes place. So I guess that's the biggest challenge and the biggest learning. And the second thing is, for any young person that's listening to this, I've always believed in this idea that young people aren't only the leaders of tomorrow, as we're called, but we are the
Hmm.
leaders of today. And if you have if you have a passion or you have something you want to work towards, you're starting this podcast right now, just freaking go for it. Like,
Yeah.
what's stopping you from doing what you want to do? Like, your age, your race, your gender, your background, nothing should stop you from achieving what you want to achieve. And tomorrow never comes. Like, you could be like, I'll start this when I'm done with high school. And then you'll be in university, and then you'll be like, I'll start this when I'm done with university.
Yeah.
And then you get your first job. I'll start this when I get my first job.
And then
Then
you
you'll
never
be, yeah,
start.
and you'll be on your freaking deathbed with all these regrets about how you've lived your life. And thinking about that. And then the last thing was, I shared the reason why I shared that story of how I went through that experience of dengue fever, and how that really, like, my life was taken away. And I don't, like, it's a very personal story, but the only reason I'm sharing it is because I had to go through an experience of pain to find my purpose. But I don't think everyone has to, right?
Yeah.
Maybe this could you just someone everyone just needs like a reminder, or something to push them to think about what their purpose is. Why were you put into this world? Like, what legacy you want to leave behind? What impact you want to leave on the lives of others? What do you want to be remembered for? It's so important to ask yourself these questions from a very early age, because once you figure out what your purpose is and why you're put into this world, then nothing can ever stop you from achieving that, right? Like, because you're working towards one overall mission.
Yeah.
In the bio that you read, like I said, I want to have an impact on 1 billion lives. Does it seem a bit close to impossible? Yes, like 1 billion, that's 1/7 of the population. But I know I want to have an impact, right? I want to be remembered as someone that was able to just make a difference in one person's life. And I think I was put into this world to do that, and everyone is put into this world for a reason. So just reflecting on that, whoever listens to this conversation, yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that is really powerful. And I think one more thing I was watching one of like your documentaries,
Yeah.
and you mentioned that, oh, like if governments can provide free condoms, why cannot they provide
Yeah.
free menstrual products?
Yeah.
And I think that was something, one of the things, you think about, but you don't really say it.
Yeah.
And you like said that out loud.
Yeah.
And I think that is so important
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
just acknowledge.
Yeah.
And so, in your opinion, what roles can government and individuals play to destigmatize menstruation and also increase access to
Yeah.
menstrual products all
Exactly.
over the world?
So there's a lot that people can do, starting from an individual level. I think having a conversation, right,
Mm-hmm.
and being open, and be it someone that menstruates or someone that doesn't, like being open to hear what it's like to have your period. Like, it's something so normal. Everyone, like, every menstruator goes through, like, we wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for the reproductive cycle and getting a
Mm-hmm.
period. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah, like half of the world's population gets a period. Why is no one talking about it? Like,
Mm-hmm.
why is it something that's so hush hush, right?
Yeah.
So everything from starting a conversation to, as someone that doesn't menstruate, asking questions, and being willing to learn, and being open to this. But then on like the other things that you can do is, donate to organizations, volunteer, like, hold your governments accountable. So in most countries, menstrual products aren't free, but condoms are free, as you said. So advocating for such, and decision makers in families, in in government roles, in positions of power. Like, how do you create an environment that allows people to have access to products? So at the workplace, in school, at home, but also, being open, thinking about, like, period pain, and like, there's so much conversations about, like, taking, like, period leaves and things of that sort.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think, yeah, like, if governments could, make products free,
Yeah.
that would be amazing. And then also, as a starting step, like, even think a lot of countries have an extra additional tax for period products because they aren't considered as essential goods. So how
Mm-hmm.
do we take out that tax? Because period products are essential. Like, you need them
Yeah.
when you're on your period. Like, what are you supposed to do? You know what I mean? So that could be a starting place before we even go into, providing free products. But yeah, that's what I have to say.
Yeah. And I think those are some really important points.
Yeah.
Um, Also, I think that when you sort of started when you were 15, how did you balance school and work?
Yeah, I think the idea of balance is honestly a myth.
Okay.
I think, an unpopular opinion, unlike most personal development, like coaches would say, or people would say, like you have to have work life balance.
Yeah.
Um, I think along the last 5 years, I've been trying to discover what can I do to balance, like, because my parents would coming from a family that is middle class. We have to work for everything that we get. Like, my parents really emphasize on education and doing well in
Mm-hmm.
school. But I've always tried my best to do that. But I think there were points in time where my parents literally came to school and told my teachers that, can you make sure Zian's not working on his nonprofit, because we feel like it might be a distraction for him to go to school and go to university. So in terms of finding balance, I think the idea of having a balance is a myth, because if you really want to work towards something, it's all about how you prioritize. Everyone has
Mm-hmm.
24 hours in a day. It's all about how you use your 24 hours. If you could give in, let's say you want to balance school, your social life, and your nonprofit, right? That's three things, right? And you could give in like 8 hours each to
Mm-hmm.
all of them. Whereas, but if you really, and that's what most people try to achieve. But then if you do that, you're already like in the average and in the what the middle
Yeah.
person does. But if you want to be successful and you want to be, you know
The
not
best at
exactly,
something.
exactly, if you want to strive towards meritocracy, then you really have to prioritize one thing over the other, and that comes with sacrifices, which
Mm-hmm.
people don't talk about. So my social life at so many times hasn't necessarily been like the best in terms of going out and having so much fun, because there were days when my friends were, let's say, playing FIFA in their room, or they were like going out to the club. I was
Mm-hmm.
pretty much like working and building this organization.
Yeah.
But how much do I really want that? I want it so much, and for me, it's a more important priority than, let's say, some of these other things. And yes, those sacrifices came, like in school. My grades weren't. I wasn't at 100%,
Mm-hmm.
because it wasn't my biggest priority. I did
Yeah.
what would get me to achieve my goals. But my priority was, my purpose and what I want to build for the life after. And honestly, if you prioritize that and you work towards that, like, everything else just aligns, and it's so beautiful how it works. Like, the universe acknowledges that, and things like all these other extra things that may not necessarily be a priority, they just kind of work out for you. So yeah, just figuring out what that purpose is and then just working towards it and prioritizing it, versus striving for like having a balanced life. Because you got to make those sacrifices and you got to prioritize one thing over the other. Like, it's always a trade-off.
Yeah. And now that you're in uni and you have achieved so much
Yeah,
at such a young
yeah,
age, do you feel there is a pressure to perform or
yeah.
do even better?
I think 100%. I think I definitely there's two types of pressure. There's one that comes from society. Like, I've definitely
Mm-hmm.
built something for myself, and I've had all this impact, and I have certain people I'm responsible towards, especially the people that we employ, our volunteers, the communities that we serve, the people that fund our organization. So there is pressure to keep up with that, for sure, and then there's also pressure for myself. Like, I've set a goal for myself that I want to help 1 billion people,
Mm-hmm.
and if I really want to do that, then I have to keep working towards that, and it's tough. It's not easy. So, yes, I'm always thinking about there's all those responsibilities and pressures, but at the end of the day, I'll still go back to the same point. Like, if you've figured out what your purpose is and what you really want to work towards, then none of these things really matter. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no certain, like, if I don't make it to a billion mark, like, it's not the end of the world for me. It's how on an everyday basis and in the process of doing that,
Yeah.
am I working towards my 100%, and am I giving it all? And in the points of like, am I working towards, yeah, like, I don't know. I feel like if you work towards something, then all these external pressures or ideas or what people have to say doesn't really matter. You just have to have like a really vacuum approach towards striving what you want to achieve,
Mm-hmm.
and doing that and giving your 100%. If not, like I always say, to reach from zero to successful, you need to put 100% of effort.
Yeah.
But to maintain that success and taking it to the next level, it's 200, 300% of effort. Like, it's way harder. to actually maintain that success. Because people again have all these expectations, and
Yeah.
you want to take it to the next level, and you always want more. So just having that mindset of striving towards what your true mission is, and
Sort
working
of
towards
blurring
that.
out the noises.
Exactly. And it's easier said than done. Obviously, like there are days when I've been in a really bad place, like, and I'm not, I'm not feeling it, and I give myself that leeway to, to take time for myself, and be open to that. And I share my experiences, and I'm super vulnerable and honest with myself. Like, if I need some time and I need to take a break, I do that. And I think it's so important because at the end of the day, we're all human, and make mistakes, and it's the path towards success is not very linear, and it has so many ups and downs. But being willing and open to be part of that process, and seeing a larger goal even in those bad days, like that's what matters, right? In my opinion.
Now talking about, the sort of ups and downs you go through as a student and a founder, what what habits or sort of mindset helps you remain calm and then make strategic decisions and kind of not let your emotions hinder your mission?
But some of the things that I do is, I try to have like a strict routine with myself. Do I follow it 100% all the time? No, but I have sort of some. I give myself flexibility, but I try to stick to it as well. So I try to get my, like, 8 hours of sleep. I think sleep is the biggest thing that most people like don't talk about. They're like, what, you could sleep 4 hours and be successful, but like, no, you need that sleep, and it's so important. So sleep is a big one. I try to, be active, so either going to the gym, or getting your 10,000 steps in, or playing a sport, like whatever works for you. And I've, like, in different phases done different things. But I try to keep active. I think if your physical and mental health is not at where it should be, or it's not the best, then it can affect your work. So it's so important to have that. And then also I do things like meditation. I'm very religious, so
Praying helps.
yeah, praying or just going to the mosque, like, every, at least, a few times a week or once a week, like just taking that time to just sit down, for like 30 minutes to an hour, um, away from the physical world, like, and just focusing on my spiritual well-being. I think it helps so much. And it gives me a sense of calm and a sense of, reflection. It gives me the opportunity to reflect. And then I do things like I have a gratitude journal, like every day. I try to write just like three bullet points. Like, today I'm grateful for, like, being on this podcast. I'm, like, grateful for, like, I worked out today in the morning. Like, small little things today, because I realized, like, you can't take anything for granted. You know what I mean? So even if you have a really bad day, but going just before sleeping, writing and reflecting on some of the highlights of the day and seeing beauty in that, like, it's so nice.
Yeah, and I think, like, sort of after COVID, the gratitude journal and just being grateful for all the things we still have, because I think 2 years of just like being sort of stuck has also made a lot of people realize, like, wow, you still have a roof over your head. You can go out, step in nature. You're healthy. Like, that is so big.
It's
Well, thank you so much for coming on Flipping Founders and sharing your inspiring story. I wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you.
Hope you found this episode helpful. See you next Thursday.